Welcome to the Dogs Podcast with your hosts, Blake Reneker, Justin Charles, and Josh All.
What's up, Browns fans? Welcome back to another episode of the Dogs Podcast. Josh All with you guys today, and yes, I am tired, but I appreciate everybody's congratulations on the newborn kiddo here in the house who is just absolutely wrecking my routine and sleep and everything else, but it's all good. We're getting through it and we're having a good time doing it. So if I'm a little less energetic than usual, you guys understand why. And today on this episode, I've got a series of episodes actually coming out here that we did just like last year with Barry Shuck, staff writer from dogsbynature.com. He was down at the Senior Bowl in Mobile, Alabama, all week long, taking notes, watching the players at the game, and he's got some serious insight into these players. We started off the conversation talking about quarterbacks really extensively. There were 5 guys there that he really went into good detail. Obviously, Will Howard from Ohio State did not participate. And then we also talked the top 2. We talked Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders, got his insight on those guys as well. So just to give you an idea, that'll be the first episode that we go into here. The second episode is going to break down the skill players from the Senior Bowl, where we talked about running backs. We talked about one guy specifically who was not at the Senior Bowl, but who Barry is super high on and would really like to see the Browns use the 33rd overall pick on if he's even available coming out of the first round. So we'll get to that. Wide receivers, tight ends, there were some big hitters, big names down there who really impressed, who could help the Browns in all these positions that we need. And then the third episode that we dive into, we're just going to talk about offensive line in general, and then just some nuances of the Senior Bowl and things that come out of this game this week, this entire event, and why it's so important for these players. Barry's got a lot of good stuff to talk about. So we will get into all that. We only got into the offensive players this time, and we have a call set up next week. We're going to dive into the defensive side of the ball. So there will be more Senior Bowl NFL Draft Prospect episodes coming out for you guys. So stay tuned. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel, tap the notification bell, and hit subscribe. I can't remember what all I said here because I'm losing my mind. I didn't sleep very well last night, guys. But anyway, like the video. We appreciate everything you guys do to help support the show. And there's just going to be a lot of great content coming out. I'm going to clip all the segments from the different players and put them out individually so you guys can quick reference and see these things. And if you missed anything, you can go back and take it all in. And, you know, if you guys are listening on Apple, Spotify, please leave us a 5-star review. We don't say that a ton, but it does really help out the show. If you're on Spotify, you know, give us 5 stars. And Apple, if you write a written 5-star review, those help out the show a ton. So before I run the risk of rambling too much here in the intro, I want to dive into this interview, and I want to give everybody just a pre-warning for all 3 of these episodes. Barry's internet connection down in Florida was no bueno, and it is kind of a tough listen at certain points where he's cutting in and out, but bear with us. The information is great. I wish there was something I could do to help out with that internet connectivity, but it was, like I said, not very solid, not very strong. But hey, I went back and edited as much as I could to smooth it out and make it a little more palatable for you guys. Barry Shuck from Dogs by Nature coming up next. All right, like I mentioned in the open, I've got Barry Shuck with me. Barry, it's been, I feel like, a long time since we've talked together here on the podcast. It's great to have you back. You always come back from Mobile, from the Senior Bowl, with such great insight and information, dropping names that Browns fans need to know, whether the team ends up taking them in the draft or not. I feel like a lot of the guys we talk about on these episodes each year end up making an impact in one way or another in the NFL once they get drafted. So very excited to have you. And what was the experience like at Mobile this year?
Yeah, how are you doing, Josh? I know you just had a baby. Are you getting any sleep?
A little bit. Just a bit.
Yeah, got you. Well, the Senior Bowl was exciting this year because of the quarterbacks. Every year they have 3 quarterbacks per roster. And occasionally they'll have a big name. Justin Herbert was there one year. Jalen Hurts was there one year. Tim Tebow. And in the past, they've had Joe Montana and Dan Marino. So they've had a lot of big names come through there. But this year, there were a lot of big names. Will Howard was supposed to show. He accepted. 6 players accepted. And then right before the Sunday when everybody showed up, they all bailed on the game. Howard's projected to be a third-round pick. So what the Senior Bowl is for is to show that you are better than everybody else when it's good against good. So Howard could have bumped himself from a third round to a second round. Maybe, I doubt at the end of the first round, but he could have jumped at least a round just by going to the Senior Bowl. Mm-hmm. That happened to Joe Flacco back in the day. He was projected low second round. He got picked in low first round by the Ravens. But this year they had a lot of big names at quarterback. One is Jalen Milroe from Alabama. Another is Dillon Gabriel from Oregon. Then we got Jaxson Dart from Ole Miss. And then Riley Leonard from Notre Dame. So it was set up to be a great week, highlighted by all the quarterback names.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you dove right into the quarterback names because that's the first topic I wanted to talk about. Obviously, it's the biggest topic for Browns fans seemingly every year, but especially this year because we know whatever the situation is with Deshaun Watson, like the starting quarterback for the Browns is not on the roster right now. So we are going to have to go to free agency, trade, and definitely in the draft. We got to take a guy. And Blake's been talking about taking two. And I feel like a lot of these Senior Bowl quarterbacks could be that second name selected in third, fourth, fifth round, depending on where you're projecting them to go after we talk about them. But it was definitely an exciting week looking at the quarterbacks. And I've been reading about the Senior Bowl and hearing stuff, how difficult it is for the quarterbacks to come in and really execute at a high level because a lot of these guys run the shotgun offense in their college system, and then they come here and the teams want them under center, play action, more pro style, and they struggle a little bit. And obviously they've got a couple days to build the chemistry with all new players, learn the new verbiage, all this stuff. So it's hard for these quarterbacks to really show out. So I want everybody to kind of keep that in mind too, just with a grain of salt. But out of these names, we'll talk about each one of them, but who stood out to you the most? And let's just kind of start with that.
Okay, as far as stood out the most on a positive note, I would say Riley Leonard. He's 6'4", 215. He went to the national championship game this year. He was the most accurate that I've seen out of everybody there. He is a local boy. He grew up right down the road from Mobile, so he had a bunch of friends and family and church members there. But he does boast a next-level ball placement, and he's got the arm talent. He can throw the ball long. He's not as accurate long with the long passes. Where he's the most accurate is the intermediate, the ditch throws to the running back to He's definitely a true field general, and I think his pocket savviness is evident, and he's got nimble footwork. He is extremely accurate on the out routes and the sideline pass. He's not as thick and big. You look at him without pads, without shoulder pads, and without a helmet, and you think, wow, he's not gonna last on this. He's only 209 pounds, but he's a good scrambler. He's a good runner. In the national championship game, he ran quite a bit, and he's fearless. He doesn't care. He'll scramble. He'll run. And one thing I notice is when he leaves the pocket, he's not necessarily leaving to run and gain yardage. He's leaving to still throw. He's still looking down the field. Now, he may tuck it in. He may throw it out of bounds. He's still looking to throw it downfield.
Okay. Those are all great traits to hear and everything like that. So what sort of, I know you track a lot of this stuff. Do you know what round projection he was coming in, and where do you have him slotted coming out of the Senior Bowl?
I think coming in, he was a 4th round pick. I've got him at when the Browns pick at number 103 in the 4th round. I think he jumped around. He could be, the Browns have 2 third round picks. They've got their own at number 67, And then they've got another one that they got from the Buffalo Bills in the Amari Cooper trade at number 94. He could go either one of those spots, but he came into the game a 4th-round pick. I would definitely say he jumped around. Did he jump into the 2nd? I don't know. Maybe at the tail end of it, because when the Browns pick at number 67, that's the 3rd pick in that round. This year, 3 teams all ended up with the same record. And so they're alternating in each round, picking 1, 2, or 3. So in the first round, the Browns are picking 2nd. Second round, the Browns are picking 1st. And the 3rd round, they're picking 3rd with these other teams. I can see him go number 67, the 3rd pick in the 3rd round. I wouldn't bat an eye if he did that, but he came in with a 4th-round pick, and he definitely jumped.
Okay. That's great information on Riley Leonard from Notre Dame. Let's go to a guy that if I'm reading your diaries correctly from each day at the Senior Bowl and my own eyes from watching the Senior Bowl itself, I feel like this guy lost draft status, and that would be Jalen Milroe from Alabama. What can you tell us about Milroe?
Well, for one, at the Senior Bowl, they had everybody from under center. And from what I can see, just about all these quarterbacks were shotgun quarterbacks. I don't know why they did that. All their plays were under center. Milroe struggled. He struggled mightily. He's not as tall as these other quarterbacks. He's only 6'2", but he's a running quarterback. The problem that he had is with his accuracy. He would short arm a lot of passes. He would overthrow a lot of passes. Throwing it deep, you can forget it. It's just not going to be completed. He just doesn't have any accuracy at all. Most of the time, the ball just drifts out of bounds and is uncatchable. That's the majority of his downfield throws. If it's a sideline pass, if it's somewhere in the deep field, he either overthrows it or underthrows it. But he just struggled. He struggled with his drop backs because if you take it under center, you drop back usually 6 to 7 steps. Well, in the shotgun, you're already 6 to 7 steps back. He just didn't know how to handle that. If he had pressure, especially pressure from the inside, he was confused about where to go from there. Now, in the shotgun, he knows he can either go left or right and sometimes step up in the pocket. But when you're being pressured and you drop back and you're not used to dropping back, he just had lots of problems. He had lots of fumbles. He had lots of interceptions in the 7-7s. What he was doing, though, one-on-ones with receivers against D-Bay, of course he looked good. There's no pass rush there. He's just dropping back and acting like he's in a pocket. But when he got into the 7-7s, when he got into the 11-11s, he was lost.
Yeah, that's kind of been what everything I've read about and seen, honestly, on tape myself with Jalen Milroe. And you talked about putting these guys under center immediately once they get to the Senior Bowl. And I wonder part of that is to see how they adapt quickly to the processing ability, because like you were saying, when they're in shotgun, they get that extra second and a half to read the defense and see everything unfold. When they're under center and they're coming back into play action, or they're just dropping back, they're losing out on that time. So it's all about processing, getting through your reads, and maybe they're testing them on that kind of stuff. And Milroe has been a guy that's talked about with the Tommy Rees connection and all that kind of stuff, because he was the OC at Alabama back in 23 and all that kind of stuff. But seeing some of these mock drafts that have Milroe in the first round, or the Browns trading back into the teens or something and grabbing him up, I keep telling people stop doing that, because I don't think this guy should even sniff the first round. But how do you see him projected in the draft?
Well, coming into the draft, coming into the Senior Bowl, he looked like a mid-second rounder. I use a site that I use, their big board, and that's where they had him, and that's where I would go with him. But if he was drafted in the third round, that'd surprise me. He is almost. It reminds me of back in the day with Tim Tebow. Tim Tebow would have one read, one progression, then he'd take off. And in college, you could do that. But in the NFL, you can't. You've got guys that are playing safety that are going to come down and just take you out. And the sacks are going to go up. The incompletions are going to go up. You can't drop back to pass or be in the shotgun and then take off 7 out of 8 plays, because after a while, they're going to start stacking the box with 8 players, and you're not going to be able to get anywhere at all. I did an interview with Jalen Milroe. It's on the site, dogsbynature.com. And I asked him about Tommy Reeves. And I've got the interview up. Let me see if, what he said. I asked him about Nick Saban. I've also asked him about Tommy Reeves. This was my question to him about Tommy Reeves. Tommy Reeves was your OC for 1 season at Alabama. He is now the OC with the Browns. Would that be an advantage for you with the familiarity? And this is what Milroe said. I have so much respect for Coach Reeves as a person and a coach. I learned so much from him, and he trusted me to have the ball in my hands. He is a coach who will put me in the grind. We both worked together well and achieved a lot for that 1 season. I would look forward for us to work together again. And what he means by putting the ball in his hand, when they lost against Michigan, not this year, of course they weren't in the playoffs, but the year before when Tommy Reeves was the OC, the very last play when they were on like the 2-yard line, the play called was a Milroe run that he got stuffed. Now, everybody was asking, well, why wasn't it a rollout where it was an option play where he could have thrown it or he could have scrambled in? It was just a run up the middle, and he got stuffed, and that was the end of the game. But Tommy Reeves put the ball to Jalen Milroe, which is a playmaker. He put the ball into his hand, and that's what he was talking about as far as Tommy Reeves trusting him.
Yeah, I mean, in those situations, you put the ball in your best player's hand. Typically, that's your quarterback, and you trust them to make the play. Sometimes it works, sometimes it does not work. So with Milroe, we've seen a lot of this stuff in the NFL where teams draft these project quarterbacks with this insane athleticism, and I'm sure Milroe is going to go to the combine and test phenomenally, in all the different athletic things. But we just saw that happen with Anthony Richardson, and how has that worked out for the Colts?
Right.
He is a one read, and then I got to get going because I can't go through my progressions type of quarterback, and it doesn't mean he can't develop, into an NFL passer. But so far, it's been 2 years. I know he's been injured and stuff, but it has not worked. And I would I do not want the Browns to draft this guy.
Yeah, RG3 was a great quality quarterback. Gained a ton of yards. But for every Lamar Jackson that comes out that does great in the NFL, then there's somebody like RG3 and Tim Tebow, Vince Young, great running quarterback. None of them ended up doing well and a successful career because they don't go through their progressions. They don't know how to read a defense. When you're in the shotgun, you mentioned under center versus being under shotgun. Another advantage that you have in the shotgun is you can survey the defense right away. You've got it in full panoramic view of what the defense looks like. When you drop back to pass, you don't. You have to do pre-snap reads and then trust your gut on that. But as you're dropping back, you don't know that this guy is stunning or this guy is not rushing and somebody else is rushing like a linebacker or a cornerback or a safety instead. You don't have that view of it, but in shotgun you do. So that's why a lot of these college programs use that. Milroe's done well with that. He would do an RPO where he would try to hand it to the back, and then if it wasn't there, he'd run. And that's what he tried to do at the Senior Bowl. Is his habit is to run and run first, but if he's got to throw the ball, he just struggled all 3 days. There was Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Then Friday is helmets and shorts, and they just do walkthroughs and they do special teams. But all 3 days, he just struggled. He looked bad.
This episode is brought to you by Danger Coffee. Browns fans, we talk about how Danger Coffee is made free from mold toxins that are in 45% of the world's coffee, but that's not all that Danger Coffee has to offer. Mineral and nutrient deficiencies are a big deal. They make you feel sick, tired, stressed, and they can give you brain fog. These deficiencies negatively affect your immune system, your digestion, sleep, metabolism. Have you ever wondered why you get an initial burst from your coffee, but then you get that little crash not long after? Danger Coffee's patent-pending process remineralizes your body with more than 50 trace minerals and electrolytes, leaving you more energized, engaged, powerful. These micronutrients enter the cells to boost performance. They bind to toxins to provide detoxification support. I know that sounds like a lot, but the bottom line, guys, is minerals matter, and most of us really don't get enough of them on a daily basis. Danger Coffee delivers micronutrients, plus it gives you access to the minerals you already have. Head to dangercoffee.com, use our code DAWGS, DAWGS, for 10% off your order, and that code can be used over and over, so you get 10% off every order you make using code DAWGS. It's time to start every day off with a cup of coffee that gets you going and actually keeps you going. dangercoffee.com, code DAWGS. So let's move on from Milroe to a guy that, by all accounts, his draft stock is on the rise. I think he did help himself in Mobile, definitely in the Senior Bowl. I believe he was named the best quarterback on the American team by the players on the national team, if I got that correctly. And it's a guy a lot of Browns fans are seriously interested in. I see it all over social media. Fans are getting hyped about Jaxson Dart from Ole Miss, and I got to hear what you saw from Dart while you were down in Mobile.
Yeah, I was expecting him to be a taller guy. He's not as lean as you would think he is, but that's okay. 6'2" is he's a former shortstop. He played infield, played baseball was his main sport. He thought he was going to be a baseball player, so he's used to the pressure of the infield. He's got a decent arm, and he's capable of delivering throws, and he's got impressive velocity, especially on the intermediate throws. He can throw deep, throwing deep. He's got excellent arm flexibility, and he seemed to adjust his throwing angles, and his release points were pretty seamless. He had a rocky first day, and again, that was from coming out of center, having to drop back and pass, not knowing where his reads are, where his progressions are. But once he figured that out at the end of the first day, he came out in the second and third days and shined. He looked really good. Be able to utilize his pre-snap reads. But then again, is a lot of the issues is he's used to the shotgun. Here he's being played under center and having to drop back. He's a good scrambler. He's an excellent scrambler. He can run the ball good, and he's got effective distribution skills. He's able to go through his progressions, look for receivers. If he's got a pocket awareness, so he can see a defender coming in off the outside, and he's also got good anticipation. He's able to thread a pass into a small hole, especially on the sideline passes. I think he stands tall under pressure, and he demonstrated a lot of toughness in 2 days. First day, it was rocky. He had a bad day, but he finished strong. And coming into the draft, believe it or not, he was ranked number 202. Well, that's 5th round. Now I'm thinking if he went to the Browns with their first pick in the 3rd round, that would be about right. I've seen a couple of mock drafts where they have him late 2nd round. That wouldn't surprise me a bit. But the Senior Bowl did him a lot of favors.
Yeah, it sure seems so. And of course, there's always, the combine and all, pro days and interviews and all that stuff that could continue to elevate his draft stock, especially in a weak quarterback class where the top end talent is not very deep, and, teams get desperate for this position, in that, in those draft slots. But one thing that you're talking about there is what Andrew Barry actually commented on Jaxson Dart was, I believe he said elite processing capabilities or something to that regard. And that's kind of what I saw on film. I've been watching some tape on some of these quarterbacks that the Browns could potentially draft. And Jaxson Dart's been one of the guys I've been studying. And I agree with you. I think he does stand tall in the pocket. I think he's got a good, downfield vision. He's going through his progressions, and he's able to shift the pocket very well, create more space for himself. And you're right, he can scramble and pick up big yards with his legs, and that it's almost like a Bo Nix scrambling capability. He's not elite speed or shiftiness or anything, but it's that determination of, well, I see he can see it, he's got the vision, and he takes off, he goes, he gets it, and then he gets back up to run another play. And I like the aggressiveness that I've seen with Jaxson Dart.
Yeah. And I tell you, at the Senior Bowl, who had the strongest arm was Tyler Shaw from Louisville. And he's a big kid. He's an absolute big kid. He's 6'5", 225 pounds. But he can throw that ball a country mile. He'll be a 5th, 6th pick, but he had some good plays. He's got natural velocity, and he showed the ability to alter some of his arm slots and release points while still maintaining his accuracy. But he could really chunk the ball. Now, who I thought was the most NFL ready, though, at the Senior Bowl was Dillon Gabriel of Oregon. The knock on him is he's only 6 foot. He's 200 pounds. Him and I saw eye to eye together. And you may say, well, I don't know. That's, you got to have somebody 6'4", 6'5", seems to be the ideal range. Drew 6 foot. When he retired, he had all of the passing records. Russell Wilson, 5'11". So there are, but he looks like the best plug-and-play player at the Senior Bowl. He just had accuracy from day one. He demonstrated excellent timing, and he had great anticipation on his throws, especially the outbreaking routes. And he had, I wouldn't say great mobility, but he had functional mobility. He will run and he will gain yardage, but he tries to be a pocket passer first. He tries to be a guy that'll get flush from the pocket and look downfield first before he's going to try to run. But he's got, I would call, high level pocket presence because he tries to stay in the pocket, and he consistently showed some good ball placement. A lot of times allowing the receiver to maximize their yards after contact opportunities.
Yeah, Gabriel has always struck me as a guy who's pretty sharp. I feel like he's got the football mind. He's got the football IQ. The stature is what it is, but like you said before, Drew Brees, Russell Wilson, we've seen, Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield wasn't super tall. We've seen shorter stature quarterbacks. I mean, he's not like a rail like Bryce Young. He's built better. Gabriel just strikes me as the type of guy that, just tell me if you agree with this, but like a team like the Giants would sign a Gardner Minshew in free agency because they can't get a top, quarterback in the draft, and then they grab a Dillon Gabriel in, I don't know, maybe the 3rd or wherever you're projecting him to go, and then maybe by week 5, Gabriel got, he takes over the starting role, or even maybe got out of training camp. But that's sort of the future I see possible for Dillon Gabriel.
Yeah, I'd say 3rd round. Now, he may have helped himself, and if he went in the bottom of the 2nd, it wouldn't surprise me at all. But the knock and every first question, every time I talked to him and was around other reporters, other media people, the very first question was something about his height. And he had the same answer. He's asked that 100 times. And but there are other guys have done it. So he's got that to lean on.
Yeah, and I feel like quarterbacks like Gabriel don't make it to the level that he is currently, leading a top team like Oregon in the Big Ten, and then, into the college football playoffs, Senior Bowl, getting all this notoriety, if he's not able to navigate the pocket, create throwing windows, see the field act, efficiently. So I think that the stature for a guy like Gabriel, that's always the chip on the shoulder. It's the, I'm going to prove you wrong. My height doesn't matter kind of mentality. And I think he definitely has that. And I think he'll use that to his advantage in the NFL.
Yeah. And like I said, out of all the quarterbacks there, I think Riley Leonard looked the best. But if I was to say who would be the day one starter or who would start earlier in their career, it would be Gabriel to me.
Okay. Well, that's great information on these quarterbacks from the Senior Bowl. Before we wrap up our quarterback discussion, I just wanted to pick your brain, get some of your thoughts and opinions on the two quarterbacks that were not at the Senior Bowl that are projected to be the top two quarterbacks taken in this draft class. Can you tell me anything you know or have seen or what you think about Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders?
Well, Shedeur Sanders, I still question if his father's gonna be at age. Eli Manning did it. John Elway did it. I did an article on it, and it doesn't look like Dillon is going to stop anybody from drafting his son. But I just wonder, even if he's drafted by somebody, is that going to be an issue? Is he going to be a meddling father? I've coached 10 years in one sport and 3 years in another one. And there are a lot of meddling fathers. I just wonder if that's going to happen. If he's not starting and you've got somebody else in their place, is he going to step in and say, hey, I'm Dillon and I dominated? Because every time he talks about his career, he talks about how he dominated sport, and he did to some extent. He couldn't tackle his grandma, but he could dominate. He would bait people and still intercept the ball. But I just wonder if that's going to be an issue with that. I don't think he throws a deep ball well. I don't think he's accurate, but he seems to be more of a player that the Browns would prefer with his running style. But I wouldn't draft him just because I would be afraid that at some point his father's going to be a problem. Now, I think Cam Ward could start day one. Rare arm elasticity, and he's got a good release speed, and he's got, I would say, natural improvisational skills when he's in the pocket. He's a good runner, and he shows a ability to extend plays. I believe if anybody's week one ready in this draft as a quarterback, is Cam Ward.
That's cool. That's exactly the type of thoughts that I had after watching a lot of Cam Ward tape and film and stuff. Was this guy looks like he's got it. He's got the tools, the traits, everything that you would want in a modern day NFL quarterback. And the biggest thing for me, yes, he's got the athleticism. He can run. He can scramble if he needs to. He's got the arm velocity, the strength, the accuracy, all that good stuff. But I feel like he's definitely got it between the ears. He seems like a dude that just walks up to a line. He knows that he's going to make a play. I see him trash talking on the field, telling like, come on, go ahead and blitz and all this kind of stuff. And, he's just got that intensity that you want because, I keep saying you don't go from a 0-star recruit and go on to play for Incarnate Word to making yourself into a Heisman Trophy finalist and potentially the first, he should be, in my opinion, the number one overall pick in this year's draft. So I am super high on Cam Ward. He is without a doubt my QB1 in this class, and I think he is definitely worth that top pick. If the Titans, for some reason, would decide that they want Shedeur Sanders on their team and they don't take Cam Ward, I am going to be doing backflips and also very nervous that the Browns are still going to end up passing on this kid if they had the opportunity, which I would love to see Cam Ward in Cleveland.
Yeah, he got lethal accuracy in the intermediate game, especially on deep crossers and seam routes.
Yeah, I've loved everything I've seen about his game. I know he gets knocked for holding the ball too long, but it's not so much that he doesn't see where plays are or anything like that. He's just extending plays. He's constantly got his eyes downfield, which is a good trait. He's not looking to run; he's looking to make a play, and stuff like that can be coached at the NFL level. There's certain situations where just get rid of the ball, live to play another down, don't take a sack here, that kind of stuff. But man, all the other tools and everything, gosh, this kid's got them.
Yeah.
All right.
All the above.
Yep. Yeah. So that'll wrap up our quarterback talk, which I know was the biggest. That's what Browns fans want to hear the most about is quarterbacks. But there are so many other positions the Browns need. So we're going to dive into the next position group here in a minute. All right. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in to the first part of this Barry Shuck interview from the Senior Bowl, talking about the offensive side of the ball. We just broke down all the quarterbacks. I thought that was some really great information. Obviously, Barry's not too high on Shedeur Sanders, and it seemed like a lot of that was stemming from the Deion Sanders stuff, which we kind of are passing off and just shrugging off, saying not such a big deal. But, Barry's been doing this a long time. Maybe it's something we need to consider a little more than we are. Definitely high on Cam Ward. Just would love the Browns to have the opportunity to take that kid, but I do not think it's going to happen. But anyway, we will wrap this one up. Stay tuned for the next episode. We'll break down all the skill positions, running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends on the next one. Again, thanks for tuning in. Like the video, subscribe on YouTube, tap the notification bell, give us 5-star reviews on the audio, and join the Dog Pack at jointhedogs.com to get into our Dog Pack community. We're going to be growing the Dog Pack over the offseason. And if you want to get a head start on all the stuff we're going to be doing, the private Discord that's in there that's just popping every day, all day long, and obviously the fantasy football leagues that I know it's only February, but those come around pretty quickly. It's amazing how fast the year goes. So stay tuned for all of that good stuff, and we'll be back on the next one, breaking down the skill position players.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Dogs Podcast. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and follow us on Twitter at the Dogs Podcast. Get your thoughts on the show at thedogspodcast.com.
This episode is brought to you by Bodden Sports. Browns fans, Bodden Sports is your one-stop shop for all your athletic gear. Bodden started out perfecting and manufacturing the best balls in the business. Yeah, if that sounded dirty, that's more about your mind than my words. But hey, it's true. Baseballs, softballs, footballs, basketballs, volleyballs, soccer balls, you name it, and Bodden has engineered the highest standard sports balls available. And now they offer more than just sports balls. If you got kids playing baseball or softball, Bodden has batting gloves and bats to go along with both game balls and training balls. If you're into basketball, Bodden makes basketball specifically for indoor or outdoor use. Heck, Bodden even has all the equipment you need for pickleball, which is one sport that I hear everyone is playing, and yet I still never have. And I need to fix that soon. But don't miss the backyard games section of Bodden's website, where you can order everything you need for this upcoming outdoor season. Pool balls, backyard volleyball nets, croquet, bocce, horseshoes, cornhole, and more. Right now, you can get 10% off your entire order at Bodden Sports, BADEN sports.com/dogs, DAWGS, and use promo code DOGS when you check out. That's 10% off all the top quality sporting gear you need this season. BoddenSports.com/dogs.